Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, Lynn.
How are you?
Great.
Good. Moi aussi. How are you guys? Hello, welcome to Friday, the 6th of December. And is there any other story other than Mandela's death? It's one of those. It's one of those stories that just literally sort of makes you feel guilty if you're talking about anything else. I don't know.
Great. So did you? I was reading today when he last came to Pittsburgh was 1991, and I was still in school and was not
I
even
did not.
in,
I was not. I didn't cover any of that, and I'm too bad for me.
Yeah.
I would. He's one of those human beings that you would just so love to be able to say, I saw him.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. What is there to say? This guy.
Well, apparently, if you're Rick Santorum,
Dear God, no.
What there is to say is he fought a great injustice, just as we are today against this Obamacare.
Is that really what he said?
Yeah.
Oh my.
That's actually the second crassest response.
And
the most crassest being from Nikki Fink, who I don't know if you know who she is. She's like this Hollywood reporter who tweeted yesterday, "R.I.P. Nelson Mandela, the subject of a biopic released November 29th that has awards buzz." So Rick Santorum right up there in terms of absolutely crass exploitation of the death of one of the legends of our time, literally.
Well, I think even the legends of all time. I mean,
Yeah,
I think when Obama said he now belongs to the ages, that sounds like,
Right.
This is one of those human beings that so rise above the rest of us that we stand in awe. In awe.
So can I tell you my little Nelson Mandela story?
Do you have a Nelson
It's not about him per se. It's about my own dunderheaded inability to recognize it. So, years ago, NPR celebrated its 30th anniversary, and it decided to do so by going around and talking about other things that were also 30 years old. And the year that happened also coincided with Three Rivers Stadium being 30 years old. And so they came to Pittsburgh, and then they were like, while we're here, why don't we find a bunch of 30-year-old people? So I was 30 years old when they did this. So Robert Siegel and Sarah Saracen and like a few of the others came to like my apartment to interview me, right? So it was a fiasco. It's just because for one thing, I lived right alongside railroad tracks, the Norfolk Southern tracks, and I mean I was hard up against them. Like if I rolled over in my sleep, I'd be on like a westbound freight. So every 5 minutes they had to stop recording. They were there for like 2 hours. You could tell they were just sick of me. Anyway, so at one point, Robert Siegel asks, so who are your heroes? And I guess this is what it is to be a 30-year-old at that time, to be a Gen Xer. I couldn't think of any. I couldn't think of any. And he said, I think I came up with some local folks who'd done some good stuff or whatever, but I just didn't have I don't have heroes in that kind of way. And he said he was surprised because they'd been conducting interviews with people. He was surprised that none of the people they had spoken to had mentioned Nelson Mandela. And it's funny because when I was in college, like about the only thing my fairly politically apathetic campus could bestir itself to do was to push for the divestment of the school's investments, which was a big thing in the late 80s and early 90s. And our school did that, and it didn't even occur to me. And I think it does say something that we, maybe it just has something about me, or maybe it has something about a culture that just really doesn't have a sense of like what greatness is anymore.
But even then, just because you couldn't at the time conjure, you would.
But no one else.
Once it was suggested, you would agree.
Once it was, I was like, I actually said this. I think. Oh yeah, Mandela, he's good. Put me down for that. I felt like such an idiot at that point. It was like, oh yeah, the guy who was in prison for a quarter century. Yeah, that's a good one. Yep.
Who came out not filled with hate. Who came out and embraced his jailers. Who came out and sought reconciliation. Who came out and I mean, this is a guy. Oh my Lord.
And the tragedy is nobody is as good as that tiny, tiny little angelic majority of people, right? And so the problems continue.
Well,
America wasn't as good as Abraham Lincoln, who also had that.
But those people,
kind of impulse.
They show us the way. If we're inclined, it can't be easy for them to be who they are either. I mean, those are rough choices. Yeah. Those are choices that get made.
Yeah.
Oh. He couldn't have known as he's making these choices that they would yield his eventual release from prison, that he would become a man of stature. He was simply living.
Yeah. Doing in accordance to his values and beliefs. Yeah.
Well, I see the New York Times has this just incredibly long pages and pages and pages obituary, which I did not have time to read. I look forward to reading it.
It's a Bill Keller piece I saw. So,
yeah, I'm sure it'll be wonderful, and I'm looking forward to immersing myself in this wondrous man who was a man. He was not perfect in that way. I mean, like he just seemed like a guy too in so many ways.
Yeah.
There was a cuteness to him. He seemed approachable. He did not seem...
He was apparently a shameless flirt.
Oh, total flirt. That's what I know. No, why wouldn't he be?
Yeah, right.
Oh. Well, when I heard of his death last night, I did thank God that he was released from his this prolonged, seemed to me, death. And I thought it's almost that body and spirit are so strong. I mean, death had a real problem grabbing him. But given what that body endured, that it could last this long, I just, oh God. No, this is when that John Donne poem, No Man is an Island, absolutely comes and hits you right in, what is it? Something about don't send to know for whom the bell tolls.
Mm-hmm. It tolls for thee.
It tolls for thee. It tolls for all of us. The world is diminished.
Yeah. Just want to wrap the show up now.
Well, it isn't so dang hard to talk about anything.
Take an early commercial break, go out for pancakes.
All right. So you mean we do have to? I absolutely invite and welcome our audience to, if they want to. I guess everybody thinks, well, what can I say? I mean, we all feel the same.
Right.
Although maybe not. Maybe not. Let's just wait for a second, and they'll start up on the
Oh, I'm sure it's already happened.
Yeah. And because we're all going to get a dose of history with Mandela's passing, we'll be reminded of how this nation stood on the wrong side of history, resolutely on the wrong side of history, almost through the 80s. I don't know when we finally, but that was under, of course, the leadership of our chosen president, Ronald Reagan, who refused to sanction South Africa, and who made remarks like, who are we to tell another nation how to...
Which is the greatest thing of all time for him.
Who are we? Did you look at our history?
I don't know. Ask Panama.
Yeah, right.
Ask Grenada.
Do we have time for a long list?
Ask El Salvador.
Yeah,
Mr. Reagan. Who we are to interfere. Ask Nicaragua. Did he actually say that? I'd kind of forgotten
I heard it on the way in because I was listening. I was listening to, I think, MSNBC, and they were running some of what Reagan said at the time when he vetoed that, because the Congress was ahead of Reagan on this. Yeah. And he vetoed their attempt to impose sanctions. And they were and then he gave this, who are we? It is not our place. He called for something, maybe this will ring a bell in your head. He called for what something he termed constructive engagement.
Right. That phrase I do remember. Is that? I didn't realize that it was from that.
Yes. Let us not use the stick. Let's use the carrot. Constructive.
I mean, and a lot of that was still in evidence when Santorum was talking about this. He was on with Bill O'Reilly, who's, I guess this is as close as you get to an epitaph from Fox. Bill O'Reilly was like, yeah, he was a communist, but he did a lot for his people. So there you go. That's,
oh, my Lord.
That ANC, they were pretty communistical. So we didn't want to get it messed up.
That is just unbelievable. Yeah. And then we're reminded of where the fierce opposition to Mandela, and it's all, Jesse Helms. Jesse Helms like filibustering to keep Martin Luther King Day from being proclaimed. Yep. I mean, you're reminded, and there'll be some squirming, I would imagine. Not there's
no shame. No shame. No shame.
Of all the adjectives being thrown around about Mandela, one that just really rings true to me is, well, it's not an adjective. Nouns, I guess. Nouns in the use of dignity. Right? There was always some. So this is a guy who, even if he were manacled and in a jail cell, would just exude.
Yeah, and apparently did.
Dignity.
Yeah.
So that tells us something. That does tell you something about character. And this, it does, doesn't it? Well, why don't we learn from this, huh? Why don't we learn? Why aren't we better people because of him? Son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Well, I mean, you and I just did it just now.
What did we do?
I just started using it as an excuse to beat up on right-wingers. That's not what Nelson Mandela would have done.
It's not what he was about. Reconciliation. How many of us could do that? Could not. How many of us, I remember thinking, oh my God, there's going to be such a bloodbath in South Africa. I mean, you could see the inevitability of the apartheid regime falling, and all you could imagine was horror. And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because of this one man.
Who often did go against even his own supporters.
Now, I must say, it could still happen.
Sure, yeah.
Because...
It could happen here.
Yeah, it could happen here. Well, it could still happen because, obviously, no one could follow in his footsteps. And so the presidents that replaced him were just these pale, puny... There's no way. And South Africa, if you talk to South Africans, is a nation that is extremely troubled right now and racially troubled right now. And you got a lot of incredible high crime there. And you have gated communities everywhere as now whites protect themselves from the black people. It's a I don't know. And I'll tell you one place where you can't blame him for it. I'm trying to think of one negative to throw in so he seems like you can identify with him as a fellow human being.
Right.
We'll have to drag him down to do it, right? He was not, his family does not speak well of, but of course he wasn't there to parent them.
Right. Yeah.
But they seem like a bunch of jerks.
Well, I mean, obviously Winnie
is
a jerk. Was a jerk. Worse than that. I mean, I think it's pretty documented.
A murderer.
That she was involved in all kinds of stuff. Yeah. Kidnaps too, and against black South Africans.
Seems like he got it right with the second
third
wife.
One. I think he was married three times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yowie. So I don't know. Nobody wants to. I guess what do you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what you've been sort of trying to telegraph to me.
No, not at all.
Because nobody's adding to anything we're saying.
We could take a break early and then jump into a bunch of trivialities.
We could. Feel free at any time to say whatever it is you want to say, and we will share it with the rest of the audience. And I think that's a brilliant idea.
Thank you, Lynn.
Mr. Potter. We shall take a quick break because who are we to continue to eulogize a man who
we are not fit to little things on his shoes.
No. God bless you, Nelson Mandela. You know what his real name was?
It was I think I only saw it today.
Mandibi?
No, there was he was born with Rohingyam or something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's something like his given. It was of course it was like a school teacher who said, "We'll call you Nelson." No one called him Nelson.
Yeah.
It's an M word that was the name.
No, I've heard that one too, but his original born name it's in there. I'll tell you.
Oh, it's in there. Okay. We'll look it up. God bless him. We'll be back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual holiday guide magazine is available now. Pick up one today for great holiday gift ideas from your favorite local merchants and restaurants. Plus George Takei, Diego Garcia, Out of the Furnace, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com. On your smartphone at citypapermobile.com and check out the new CP Haps app, available for download from the iPhone App Store and Google Play.
Just in time for the holidays, Little's Shoes is your UGG headquarters. Little's has the largest selection of UGGs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. Don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. All available at Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store. Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill or littleshoes.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Don't say anything either.
Just having a little episode there, folks.
Okay, so we've decided to move on. Hey, there's some good news today about, do you know the unemployment rate's down to 7% now?
Yeah.
Well, listen, where was it?
I mean, it was higher than that. Look, we got a call. We could talk about unemployment in a moment.
May wonders never cease. Hello.
How you doing today?
Good.
Wow.
I can't get all choked up like you guys do.
Why's that?
I just can't. The worship of these people on earth, other than the good Lord above, they're just a man or a woman that lives on the earth. They put their pants on one leg at a friggin' time as you and I, but you people seem to kiss their ass every damn time one of these people die or whatever happens. I respect the person, but what you guys... But I just can't get all choked up like you two. I really can't. Honest to God, you do that with so many people. It's amazing how you people think. The worship you do. I mean, they're a man or a woman, whoever it is.
Well, Lynn?
I am simply stunned. Will you turn down your audio? It's enough to sound like I do. Listen to it twice.
I'm having no disrespect for these people, but to get all choked up, now it'll be on the news for the next week.
All right, so don't listen or watch. So listen.
It'll be more ass kissing over and over again. Yes.
Would you not agree that and I said he was a man, but what...
Oh, he has a wonderful story, I'll give you that. There's a lot of people that have wonderful stories that you don't even know about.
That's
the
true.
Unsung heroes.
That is true.
But we don't hear about them.
But we do
but
know
the news media gets a hold of it every time, and you're part of that news media still. You're the same type of people that do this ass kissing over and over again. I know how you are.
You are failing to acknowledge that some of the humans that live for a split second on this earth rise so much higher above the rest of us in the way that they live their life and in the impact their example and their decisions have on others. This guy...
That's why Africa's so wonderful over there, isn't it?
There would have been a bloodbath in South Africa if
there is now.
There is not.
Yes, there is.
It's not.
In Darfur.
It's not like roaming packs of people butchering each other like you have seen in other countries and other circumstances, for sure. I hear what you're saying, man. I get it. I mean, there's always that danger of, sort of creating these saintly figures who are the great people, and they're the ones who, we all sort of pat ourselves on the back for praising. Like, I get that there's that danger of sort of deifying people, but I also think, the very fact that he was a human being, that he did have flaws, some of which we were talking about 5 minutes ago, that his own sort of difficulties and some of his own personal relationships or whatever, that if anything, the fact that he is a human sort of calls us to be better ourselves.
That's
and
right.
I think it's sort of lauding the man's accomplishments. I don't know that we're setting him on that kind of pedestal.
I think we're challenging ourselves
to rise to that level. But I agree with you. There are a lot of unsung people out there who are making differences in 1,000 ways, and I don't think to praise the one is to diminish the other.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for
Goodbye.
the call. I will say, if that caller did nothing else, he did something which I haven't seen happen very often, which is leave you speechless. Your mouth is just like opening and closing like you are a freshly landed lake trout. You're just hop, hop, hop.
I know. Well, I love that caller, but I thought I had to say I'm a little surprised.
Yes, I could tell.
I don't think that I'm deifying him. I am lauding him to the skies.
Yes.
Because as human beings go, he's one of the more wondrous ones that I know of. I have to tell you, I think you talk about the unsung, the ones we don't know. I actually, as I was reading some of the Obit, and don't you laugh.
Okay.
Okay. Don't really. I thought, I so feel my dear departed father had a character that was remarkable. judicious, moderate, could always bring people together. And I'd often thought throughout my life, geez, if only he could be like the president. Maybe we could get something. Because he had those same qualities of not making things worse, always somehow finding common ground. Slow to anger. Always sort of ingathering. And in fact, since he's been gone, he underwrote a peace and reconciliation institute at St. Norbert College in De Pere, Wisconsin. That was his life's work too, sort of like a Mandela is. Only he was he put up a strip mall in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So who knows him, right?
Right.
But I was, as I read about him, thinking, my dad had some of those incredible traits of character. But his life didn't put him where Nelson Mandela's life put him. You're right, caller. There are wondrous beings all over. I nominate my own dad as one. Truly.
I did not laugh. See that? Why would I laugh at that? It was nice.
Did I ever tell you what he did? Okay, I am going to tell you this story.
Okay. Can I laugh at this one if it's funny? Or
it's not funny at all.
Okay. Oh, great. All right.
It's admirable.
Oh, okay.
He was 18 years old. He was orphaned, and he went off to college at Northwestern University as a recent orphan. There's no family back there anyways, on his own. He hits the ground sort of running. And he goes, I forget what, the engineering school at the time at Northwestern had just received this huge bequest. And they were going to build new building and all this kind of stuff and rename the engineering school. There was only one little caveat in this thing. Did I tell you this story? No Jews need apply. Right? And there weren't many Jews at Northwestern to start with, but
This would have been what year?
Like 1940.
Okay, so just before World War II.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my father was very tall. He was like 6'3". And he, along with this little teeny Jewish guy, I forget his name, went to see the president of the university. Made an appointment. They go in, and my father tells him that he finds this acceptance of this gift and this caveat to be beneath an institution of higher learning and blah, blah, blah. And he did his thing and was told by the president that, sorry, kid, blah, blah, blah. And he ushers them out. My father overhears the president say to his secretary, there were two, I think he used a negative word in here, tall one and a short one. I don't ever want to see them in this office again or something. My father took that and decided that the Northwestern campus needed something called Better Understanding Week. 18 years old. He starts organizing a campus-wide thing. He goes to Washington, D.C. He ends up personally getting in to see Justice Felix Frankfurter, Justice Louis Brandeis, who were the two Jews. He got in to see the Jews to alert them to this. Can you imagine an 18-year-old college kid doing this now? He got Ralph Bunche. Do you know that name? You should know that name. He later became the ambassador to the United Nations, the first African-American ambassador to the United Nations, I believe, Ralph Bunche. He ended up doing it. I still have this yellowing program of Better Understanding Week. But that's the kind of impulse. So isn't that,
so what happened?
That's pretty remarkable. No, I think there was still a... Listen, the year I was let into Northwestern, 1966.
They had a no tall broads policy, and Lynn Cullen went out and
was the first year that Northwestern's admissions had lifted their quota on Jews and blacks.
Wow.
So the class that I came in with was filled with the type that they'd been trying to keep out. And sure enough, we caused immediate trouble.
Exactly what they were afraid of.
Exactly true.
Good for you.
But, I mean, there are people who try to make things better. Nelson Mandela was such a man.
Yes.
And he did.
Yes.
If only by example. If everything falls apart in his wake, it doesn't diminish what he did.
Right.
You want to get off this?
No, not at all.
I'm sorry.
It had to be done. I think you got some emails, though, from listeners.
We did?
Or maybe not. One says, wow. Oh, that's all just wow.
Well, what does that mean?
Probably in reference to our caller.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That would have been reference to the caller. Right. Oh, look at that. Chris Potter brings a smile to my face. That was in regard to something else. Okay.
You were saying something about unemployment. Want to take another break?
It's just dad anyway. I'm missing my dad.
Oh.
Okay, so you think I'm losing my mind? Do you really? Oh, that's too funny.
I was just like, what now? Yes.
He's getting nervous. He thinks I'm a little off the rails today. Oh, look what I have here. I found this story, and this has nothing to do with anything that people can get. It's just some facts, information.
Facts and information.
Yeah.
That's what we're about here at the Lynn Cullen Show.
And it's about the weather. And that's what people talk about when they can't think of anything else to talk about. Is that correct?
True. That is very often the case.
So yesterday we were walking around in shorts. Today it's a little bit colder, and there's snow and sleet and God knows what on the way. Okay, so it says here, and I don't think I shared this thing with you before, that the United States is uniquely known for extreme weather. Of all the places on this globe, why would you? Isn't that odd? We, the United States of America. If you think about it, do you ever hear? I did this the other day. I saw something. That there was a tornado somewhere in Germany or France. I thought, what? Because you never hear of tornadoes anywhere else. So this affliction of tornadoes, this only happens in the United States. Tell me where else you ever hear of tornadoes.
I don't know, but just because we don't hear of them doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I mean, we wouldn't necessarily take that much interest if a tornado struck the island of Madagascar.
If there were a tornado that, like a level 5, the likes of which we see here, that would make the news anywhere.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, a tornado, is, it's not like a big storm.
You hear
like
about earthquakes in other places.
Yeah, but those wipe out whole cities. A tornado goes through. It's a pretty local. I'm not trying to minimize what it's like to be in a tornado, but it's a pretty, localized thing. But that's interesting. So why is that? Why
ignorance. Is it? Okay, here. Let me inform you.
Go, sister.
The United States has the world's wildest weather extremes. No other part of this planet can boast the kind of ferocious stew of hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, floods, wildfires, blizzards, heat waves, and cold snaps. Okay.
And why is that?
I will now tell you. Why is
because God is angry.
No. It's because we're sort of uniquely stuck. It's our geology and our geography. Okay. So, for instance, first of all, we're located just about halfway between the North Pole and the equator.
Yeah.
Right? And that's going this way. And then on this way, we're hugged by 2 huge bodies of water. Right? This is all the kind of stew that makes weather. Right? Cold air, warm air,
Trade winds.
Winds and moisture.
We should be doing this segment with the green screen behind us, and you could kind of be reliving your like weather girl days.
Tornadoes, says here, are nearly unique to the United States.
Because you need a big flat area, right?
Of all the tornadoes that occur in the world, 90% of them hit our country. Of all the countries in the world. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
We also have more severe thunderstorms than anybody else. China, for instance, which is a little bit larger in size. I think quite a bit larger in size than us, don't you? 10 tornadoes per year.
Yeah.
Well, what?
Well, you know how it's going. The Chinese, they'll start buying up their own tornadoes. They'll be shipping our tornadoes over there, and they're going to own everything.
Here's the thing. Think of the mountain ranges we have. Of the mountain ranges we have.
Have them in mind.
What direction do they run?
North to south, for the most part.
That is correct. They run north to south.
Yep.
They do not run east to west.
Right.
If the Rockies, let's say, split us because they ran east to west or west to east.
Yes.
They would be able to thwart the cold winds coming down from the Arctic, and they would keep those cold winds from meeting the warm, balmy breezes coming off the Caribbean or Caribbean, whatever you say. And it's when those two meet that you get this stew that creates tornadoes. Okay?
Maybe we should build some mountains.
Well, it just goes to show you. I guess you could put in a...
Just like stack up all of our SUVs in a big pile.
So here are some of the U.S. world records for weather.
All right.
The most snowfall in 1 year. Not Siberia. The United States of America.
Woo!
Mount Baker, Washington, 95 feet.
Wow.
Okay? The heaviest amount of rainfall in 1 hour. Also, a world record. We hold it. The good folks of Holt, Missouri. In 1 hour, they got pummeled by 12 inches.
Wow.
The largest hailstone ever recorded.
It was in Texas, I hope.
No.
They have hail in Texas.
South Dakota.
Oh,
it was 8 inches in diameter.
Man.
Jeez, you wouldn't want to get conked with that. The longest traveled tornado, it kept on going. Usually, it went 219 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's still in a bus depot outside of Decatur.
It traveled through Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, parts of. Okay. Also, the hottest temperature ever recorded in the world, not the Sahara, not not in the middle of Africa, but you
Death Valley?
Got that right. Yep. Death Valley, California, 134 degrees.
I well believe it.
Fahrenheit. So that's just an interesting little tidbit.
It certainly is.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're not interested in the least. I find that fascinating that geography and geology give us the weather.
Right.
And we get more than our share. That's... Tom says his given name was...
I told you, Rolala.
Why won't this come up? I can't. It won't print.
I think that's just a text.
Oh, okay.
The whole message is the subject.
Rolalala, which means troublemaker.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I love it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sokolowski, for that.
Does that ever seem weird to you? This is a totally trivial point. But, like, in other languages, people's names, like, mean stuff, and you're like, that's really interesting.
Well, ours do, too. We just don't know the
But they mean something, like, in a different language. Or to borrow from the Bruce Willis character in Pulp Fiction, I'm American, honey, our names don't mean shit. But, like, so you would never name your kid Troublemaker Cullen or Troublemaker Potter. You might name it something that meant something in another language, as I did, for example. But
what does your kid's name mean in another language?
Well, it's actually, Cormac is such an old name that nobody is definitively sure what it means. It may mean son of the raven, son of the charioteer, or son of impurity, which is my personal favorite.
Oh, my God! Well, son of impurity.
Yeah, I know. On the other hand, the first High King of Ireland was Cormac. So basically, you have the entire range of options suggested by that name, which is one of the reasons I liked it.
Well, you know, as a Jewish person, I have a Hebrew name.
Yeah.
And it definitely has a meaning.
Yeah.
And I can even tell you what it is because I don't know much Hebrew, but my name is very clear.
And it means?
I love it. Chaya, which means essentially Chai is life.
Mm-hmm.
Chai, and Chaya would be the female form.
Mm-hmm.
Chaya Batcha. Chaya Bat, which Batcha, daughter.
Daughter, right.
Daughter of life.
That's nice.
Chaya Batcha. Very nice.
Yeah.
So you could call me that too. Daughter of life.
Yeah.
So what does Christopher mean? Well, Christ.
Bearer.
Christ bearer?
Yeah, after St. Christopher, who supposedly
carried
a manifestation of Jesus across a river or something.
What do you mean a manifestation?
Because it was after his. It was not. I mean, it was not like in life.
So it was like on an acid trip or something. Excuse me.
Yeah, we're about to get a severe weather event in this studio right here. Just a very focused lightning strike right here on the 22nd floor.
Go ahead, have at me. I am Chaya Batcha. All right. Think I'm afraid? I ain't afraid. All right. We'll take a quick break so I can be struck down.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Check out my new time machine.
Does it work?
Hit the button.
Hey, it's Napoleon.
Oui. Check out the future.
Hey, you have a nice house. Why don't I?
You didn't save any money, buddy.
If only there was a way I could go back in time and fix that.
Yeah.
Save something for the future. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Go to the all-new bergbargains.com for great deals on holiday gift cards from your favorite local restaurants, bars, museums, attractions, and shows. Log on now for great deals from Sephora, Atria's, Fair Day, P.F. Chang's, and Kohl's. Supplies are limited. The all-new bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains, bergbargains.com.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Oh, my heavens, here we are. You be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's, I can't think of anything else to talk about, so let's talk about local politics, which I never pay any attention to whatsoever.
Good for you. Yes.
All right, so there's a little kerfuffle or something that I was not interested in seeing between Peduto and Ravenstahl?
Oh, God, this pension thing.
Well, what's going on? Is there anything going on that we should need to know? Or
I mean, it's it's one of those things. It's like 6 months from now, is anybody going to remember it? Probably not. But is it sort of an interesting thing? That generally, what's going on is Bill Peduto had this idea, which his staff now claims actually came from members of the Ravenstahl administration, which is to offer a sort of early retirement benefit for people who want to go. And this is sort of important for people to understand why they have to do this. It is very, very, in all but a few cases, it is very, very difficult to get rid of civil servants.
Yes, it is.
You can't fire them almost for anything short of like going out and like mowing down a group of school children as they get off a bus. It is very hard to...
They're like tenured professors.
It's yeah. So conversely, Bill Peduto has promised to remake city government. So he's got a bit of a problem. And so one of the things he tried to do is to say, well, look, we'll offer an early retirement benefit to folks. And if you take it, you essentially need 10 fewer years of service to get your pension. That's essentially how it boils down. The problem with that is that the state's the Act 47 law that governs Pittsburgh basically specifically bars the city from offering pension enhancements, which this essentially is. because the pension, the size of the pension debt is one of the larger
it's one of the
problems that the city has. So
that every city seems to have.
So now this has become like a thing. And the issue is, this is like really from a policy standpoint, this is sort of the first thing that, Bill Peduto has put out there. And what he's trying to do is kind of clear, I don't want to say deadwood, but he's trying to clear out some folks who maybe don't want to, who are maybe ready to move on in their lives or don't want to, see this transition through. And he would like to get his own people in there.
Sure.
Using this talent city thing, which is, a totally apolitical way of finding the best and brightest to run our city government. So now he's in a bit of a jam, which is yesterday, Luke Ravenstahl said that if this has to go through council and be proposed as a bill, that if council were to pass it, he would veto
not sign it.
And it is almost certain that Bill Peduto doesn't have the votes on council to overturn such a veto. So it's a sort of open question what's going to happen. So late yesterday, there was an email from a statement from Kevin Acklin saying, well, look, if he's going to veto it, we're going to have to think. This came from his office. We talked to Scott Kunka, who's the mayor's budget director. We talked with him. We were talking with the Act 47 people. We were pulling this together. We were working through these challenges, and now he says he's going to pull the rug out from under us. And if this is really what's going to happen, we may just have to pull the proposal because we're not going to play games with the lives of our workers. So is it Ravenstahl just sort of being a dick? One could probably make that argument. I do think though that there's a legitimate. This is a problem. If the law says you can't do a pension enhancement, and then you come up and you say, "I got an idea for a pension enhancement," you're gonna run into some trouble. And is it a bit embarrassing for the mayor-elect? I think so. But I understand the spirit of what they were trying to do. Yeah. The interesting thing was when they originally put it out there, the statement was, we're offering this to you for those who want to take it. Those who remain, you should know you'll be working for an administration that will, evaluate performance and da-da-da-da-da. So it was a sort of like a not very subtle way of saying,
we're on you.
Yeah, hey, deadwood. If you think that label applies to you, this is something you may want to take a look at.
Oh, I do see some emails that we see. Oh, Ray has talked about our. Was that the only caller we got today?
That is the caller so far, yes.
The caller who was down on us lauding Mandela.
Right.
Ray says, Lynn and Potter, how would you like him to sit down next to you at the pub? Whoops, look at the time, gotta go. Pulling someone down does not raise us up.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although I actually would have been happy to sit next to that caller at a pub. He knows who he is.
Well, he does, and he has a point of view.
Yeah.
And Tom has written back something about what Rush Limbaugh said about Pope Francis. I don't know what he said.
Oh gosh. This is now that we've got a pope who actually talks about something other than like women's ability to control their body. Now that we have a pope who is interested in a very honorable and cherished tradition of social justice and talking about economic issues. Now these right-wingers who previously just couldn't get enough of the Catholic Church don't know what to do. So he's like a Marxist and an Obama. I think he said something about Obama having like an orgasm or something like that. I don't think I'm making that up. I think that actually happened.
Well, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Now they all hate the Pope. They liked the Pope as long as they were for the Catholics, as long as the Catholics just talked about, how bad Obamacare was, and as long as Dolan and those guys were, willing to denounce contraception. But now it's a different ballgame.
Now the Pope's gone over to our side.
And I don't even know that he's done that. It sounds like he's still remaining theologically consistent on things like female ordination and all that. But at least he's doing something which is putting that stuff into a broader context where that's not all the be-all and end-all of the theology.
Exactly right.
So guess what? It turns out that you can't just use religion as a cudgel to beat up your foes. Jesus had a thing or two to say about that, as I dimly recall. A certain don't cast stones,
glass houses,
that kind of thing, and okay. Whatever. they're scared old men.
Did the people at PPG? You know what they should have, like a thing where they stand outside PPG and throw stones.
Just to defy the.
Do any of those windows open in PPG?
No, I worked in that building. I worked in one of those buildings for a little while.
But so you can't like open the windows and start throwing stones out from under.
You'd have to go down onto
You'd have to go down to the the thing, and wouldn't it be great if you had like a PPG employee stone throwing, and they just stood in front of their glass castle
and just begged for a fight
and threw
spoiling
stones.
For a fight with.
Well, you can. Okay, well that brings us to sort of the same real estate as the strike was yesterday. The protesters.
Yes.
And is this going to catch fire? Is this going to make a difference? It seems to be growing a bit.
It's interesting you brought that up, Lynn. Because I suggested it during the break. But no, I didn't actually suggest that question. But I think it's good because there were a couple things that went on yesterday. One was this protest that took place both at Market Square at like 6 a.m, which I was not at, and then a protest over on the north side at noon, which I could bestir myself to attend. There was also a pretty high octane rally at Duquesne University about the fate of adjuncts. And the funny thing is, of course, these are two groups of people who are basically, from an economic, just sort of dollars and cents thing, almost in exactly the same situation.
Amazing, even though some have PhDs.
Yeah, and you know what? Some of the ones working in some of those fast food places probably also have degrees.
PhDs.
So it's a very interesting, thing. And I was talking to some people, some veteran organizers, people who I have known for like 15, 20 years almost.
They're excited, I bet.
And and one of them says, and again, obviously it's always in their interest to say, oh, there's the momentum's really, catching up.
There is.
But, one said, I've been doing this for a long time. And you've known me for a long time. And I cannot remember the last time feeling as optimistic about this. And it came up in this conversation if I had said, somebody had told me or another reporter, I can't even remember, that the focus was going to be really on UPMC. And that's where we were going to kind of put all of our energies. And what this activist said is, I feel like we don't even have to do that now. Like a few years ago, it felt like we really had to marshal our resources and just focus on like the one thing because that's all we had, the energy and the interest level and the resources for. And now I feel like precisely because everyone is increasingly in this situation. Because
there's so many people who are working for poverty wages.
And she said quite modestly, it's not like some genius thing we've done. It's basically these guys on the upper floors who have done the work of sort of mobilizing for us. And now everybody kind of looks around and sees these same issues of inequality are just sort of percolating up.
Even the president himself alluded to them the other day.
And this is, and the Pope as well. So when you really think about it, there's just a lot going on.
There seems to be a gathering storm. Yeah. I said that yesterday too. And I do feel that, I've been wondering for decades, frankly, when is the sleeping giant down under going to start rousing?
Yeah.
And I think it's starting to happen.
Well, and I was thinking about this on the ride in this morning, right? I mean, what's the one social justice cause that I believe in that's actually gotten traction in my adult lifetime is LGBT equality. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's ways to go in terms of the actual policy, but I think there's this emerging consciousness of like, this is what we need to do.
And this is what the right thing is.
This is what. And so what drove that? And I think that what drove that is, I believe, just the simple number of people coming out and how we all know somebody within our own lives now, right? We all know people who are gay, lesbian. Many of us know multiple people. So there's that kind of awareness. Now it's not just sort of punishing somebody abstractly, but somebody in your own life. We are now at that same point on some of these economic issues, or we're approaching that. There's just now everybody's hard pressed. We got to call.
Caller, hi.
These fast food workers who say they want $15 an hour.
Right.
If that happens, they're going to put themselves out of a job.
I mean, that's
because what they will do is they will just automate the order processing to a point where it will not be needed.
They're going to automate that anyway. That's true. These kinds of jobs are going to be automated in large part. That's true.
But this will just greatly hasten the process.
So I hear that argument.
That's always the argument.
And that's clearly a risk, right? But so what's the option? I mean, I was talking to some of these workers yesterday. A woman who was working at the downtown Wendy's, who gets about 20 hours a week. She's got 2 kids. She makes $250 take-home pay every other week. So you figure out the math of that. That is dismal. So the only way she's making it is she's getting help from the government, right? So what's like the answer? Is it to just like stay there because you're afraid that you'll lose even that? Like, I just don't know. It feels like I don't know that you're wrong. I mean, who can say that? Who can say that you're wrong? But it does feel like at some point people have to stand up and say, I'm willing to work, but I need to make a living at it. And
you see, if everybody sort of refused to, we're the government is subsidizing these corporations.
Right. They've socialized the cost of providing benefits and a living wage to the rest of us.
And we, the people, also demand always the lowest prices. So we've helped as consumers to depress our neighbors' incomes. It's got to stop. I don't know what happens. You cannot expect people to work hard and not be given a living wage. That is not a business model that is, first of all, it is not does not morally pass muster.
Well, one reason to worry about giving them a living wage is so they can buy the things that these companies make.
That is correct.
Right.
Henry Ford figured that out 100 years ago, and now we got to relearn that all over again, apparently.
The other thing
I don't know if business will ever become smart enough to say, we can automate the daylight salvage plant and use as few people as possible. But if we do that, nobody will have money to buy the products we make, and I don't know if business will ever reach that point.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Getting close.
What they'll all do is they'll all allow each other to sort of beggar themselves, right? If I don't do this, my competitor will, right?
That's right.
So I think there's a certain point at which we have to say, look, we create the laws by which our market functions. You listen to these Republicans and they all just want to pretend like these are immutable laws, like you may as well fight gravity or whatever. But the way the economy works is a social construct. We all agree. I mean, what's society? It's what everybody who shows up agrees that it is. And if we decide for ourselves in a sufficient number that this isn't what we want,
this structure does not.
We have the ability,
work.
and I think that's where I would like to think that's where we're headed. But I agree with you. I mean, it's the danger of technological innovation is. I mean, it's so much of what's going on right now is so much of the manufacturing sector.
Well, I read on the internet there's someone who says by year 2030. Half the jobs that exist today will no longer exist.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So what the hell is going to happen to all of us? I mean, these folks, a lot of these folks, the adjuncts at Duquesne, the folks over there on the north side yesterday, I mean, these are kind of the canaries in the coal mine. I mean, what happens to them? It'll come for us.
It's coming for us.
If it hasn't already.
People can't figure that out. They're whistling past the graveyard. I was talking about this yesterday, and one of the emailers said, "You're such a downer today." Well, sorry. Let's deal with reality, huh? Could we even try to acknowledge what's going on, and try to move it in some way?
Yeah.
I don't know. The caller, thank you.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you for the
You're
call.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
The other thing to point out, too, is, I mean, obviously, there have been times once you start, doing the things like adjusting for inflation, clearly, for much of our modern history, the living wage was higher than it is now. And yet somehow, I mean, it wasn't riding the street. It wasn't, we weren't living in Metropolis where the machines had all the jobs or whatever. I mean, it is possible not just to imagine a better setup or a more equitable setup, but to actually find evidence of it in our own recent history. So I know the caller is exactly right. These are serious. I mean, that's a serious thing. But on the other hand, I don't think we can let our fears define or constrain the vision that we have for our, for a better future.
I think what's interesting is how people react to this sort of bubbling discontent. Some people say, yes, finally, let's try to move things. And others react with fear. It's like
resentment.
Oh my God, the underclass is finally coming for us. They feel like that. It's sort of like the fear of freeing the slaves. They'll slaughter us all in our beds. Yeah, because you'd sort of expect, because you knew they had reason to. Right. And the fact that they didn't, sort of a precursor to Nelson Mandela, to come, is. Sorry for those of you who are going to now run behind your gated communities. Sorry. we need something more equitable.
I actually think the more pernicious thing is, and this is one of those things, as a parent, you fear this because there are moments when you're a kid and your mother or your father says something and they put no store by it, and yet it lodges in your head for the rest of your life. And my mother said to me when I was maybe 6 years old, we lived in Upper St. Clair, and there was the, I guess I had to be older than 6, but Consolidated Coal had their headquarters right there on Route 19. And we were driving by there one day on our way to whatever, the mall or something. And there were workers demonstrating out there, like actual coal workers, came to the thing. And they were holding a sign, and one of the signs said something like, lifetime health care or something like that. And my mother said in the front of the car, as if anybody has that. And I remember thinking, well, that's no reason not to ask.
Oh.
But don't we all do that? I don't have that, or nobody I know has that. So why are they asking for it? Why are these union people asking for another $1 an hour when I haven't had a raise for 5 years?
That is true.
And there's that. I think there's that thing, and that's I think one of the reasons we haven't seen this is everybody's just trying to hold on to what they got. They can see it going. They can see it getting taken away from everywhere else. Everybody's just trying to hold on what they got. But anybody who asks for any more, there's somehow a feeling that well, if they get it, that's somehow less for me,
right?
Or it's just not even relevant to me, or I don't have it, and for somebody else to ask for something I have seems damn presumptuous to me. I don't know exactly what goes on in people's heads, but I think that attitude of what you get is somehow less.
Well, what's interesting is that some people can't see that their insecurity,
right,
is akin to the insecurity of those fast food workers. But if they're wearing, a suit and tie and going to business, and they think of themselves or they identify with, frankly, their conservative bosses. And they're just not seeing it clearly.
But you will see that because even you look at lawyers for right now. There's a huge people don't talk about it. There's a huge in lawyers in the legal profession. There are a lot of pressures going on there. You're seeing some of these law schools starting to draw back, shrink their classes.
They're shrinking their classes. They're shrinking their tuition. They're shrinking.
And there will be a ripple effect because a lot of the reason those law programs are so big in the first place is because they are cash cows for those universities.
That's right.
So it'll be very interesting to see how that dynamic plays out even on some of our biggest employers here. We are all in this boat together.
Yup. From the PhDs, the pointy-headed intellectuals, the pipe-smoking, bow-tie-wearing, patches on their elbows type, and that 19-year-old fast food worker. They're in the same boat. And so are a lot of you people working in sales and working in all kinds of service positions and clerical positions all over the place. You work hard, you do your job, and you are not paid enough to get by.
Yeah.
This is the richest country in the world. May I remind you of that? And may we remind you of the fact that there is a tiny percentage at the very top that controls, and that owns more than half, I think, of all that's in the pot. It is not communistic to say, could we, figure out a way that this could be a little more fair? That ain't communism. That's Christianity, I think.
That Jesus, you're always putting that guy on a pedestal.
That is
Everyone wants to kiss Jesus' ass. There's lots of unsung people in first century Judea who are doing good work and nobody pays attention to them.
And that is damn right.
Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. We'll be hearing about that guy for weeks.
He now belongs to the ages. All right, you.
Thanks.
Would you like to say goodbye now?
Goodbye now.
Goodbye now. See you Monday.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.